Hey everybody, it's November 15th, 2020. My name is Apti and I'm here with the rest of the Shadowcasters, and we're gonna shove some tabletop news talk right into your ears. Today we're going to be talking about the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Beginner Box set for release this next week. We're going to talk about Paradox Interactive taking back direct control of World of Darkness. We're going to talk about the Cyberpunk Red release, and we're going to talk about Drift of Dreams, which is a Swordsfall graphic novel. If you have any news that you'd like us to talk about, please send it over to us via our Discord channel. You can find that at shadowcasters.network/Discord, and consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/Shadowcasters, like Chris Valentine did. Thank you so much, Chris, for your patronage. Patrons get plenty of rewards. Our most popular reward tier is the $5 Warrior tier, and that's where you're going to get the most value. You get the access to our Patreon-only Discord channels. You get recordings of the full live show. You get priority in our question and answer time after the show. And you get to be a part of the stupid game.
The stupid game!
Which, again, is virtually everything that you need out of life. So we'll get on into the news. The headline that we want to talk about first is the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Beginner Box releasing next week. Lots of interesting news actually from Paizo this week, but the highlight is the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Beginner Box. It includes an 80-page heroes book, a solo adventure, pared down version of character creation, skills, spells, and equipment. Also includes a Game Master's Handbook that you can use to run an intro adventure, some monsters, tips for making up your own adventure, etc. It's got 4 pre-gen characters, cutouts, 4 rules reference cards, and a set of your typical polyhedral dice. Hits stores November 24th and at a cost of $40. What's interesting is it coincides with the release of the second printing of Pathfinder 2nd Edition Core Rulebook, which has all the errata updates. Real quickly, Alchemists apparently got a buff, streamlined encumbrance rules, minor tweaks like every class gets fisticuffs skill for free, some other minor fixes and stuff like that. Full changes you want to see on the Paizo website. So I don't know. I haven't played too much Pathfinder, maybe a game or two over the last few years. Cliff or Oz, do either of you have more than a passing familiarity with Pathfinder?
I got a chance to try it out at Origins not long before it was released, I think that year, and I really enjoyed it. And later when Cassie asked me to join a stream of theirs, we played in sort of an early access or pre-release live play. I think it was a while ago. I played a wizard. I really liked the changes they made that I saw, particularly to the action economy. But I don't remember a lot about it. Most of what I observed about Pathfinder 2nd Edition is it seems to have been received about as well as Shadowrun 6th World Edition.
Oh. Really?
Most of what I see about it is people complaining on the internet.
That was my impression of it too. Yeah, and so I played a lot of first Pathfinder. I did like 2 full campaigns and one no, I guess they didn't finish. Anyway, whatever. I did a lot of campaigning in it. And it was a very complicated system. It was basically like a more crunchy D&D 5e. So I definitely prefer 5e now, which is why when I saw 2nd edition come out, like what was it, like 2 years ago at Gen Con, the first printing or like the playtest rules. Yeah. I was like, okay, that's nice, but I didn't want to really touch it. But yeah, and then I had heard that there was a lot of issues and complaining and stuff, but I didn't know if that had to do with like grognards or anything like that. Or just...
Yeah, me either. From what I saw of the game, I really liked the changes they made. I thought they made some really nice streamlining innovation type improvements. But again, it's been so long since I've read the rules that I don't really want to discuss them in any detail because I'm sure I get it wrong.
Well, the Pathfinder, a large base of the Pathfinder crowd are those who rebelled against Dungeons and Dragons 4th edition. So I think in some sense, like the power base within Pathfinder is set to rebel against rules that they don't like. One real quick thing I want to also mention about Paizo. Like I said, lots of Paizo stuff. We talked last week about a cool Paizo thing I saw. But this other thing crossed my desk this week, and I just had to mention it. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but Starfinder on Alexa. Did you guys see this? The Dead Suns Adventure Path. First foray into interactive audio adventures on your home Alexa device. Playing through first 3 episodes would take you about 3 or 4 hours if you want to do it all in one sitting, but each episode is about 60 to 90 minutes. And basically, Alexa guides you through an adventure. Alexa's your DM, like a choose your own adventure type thing. So I'd be super curious if anybody has Alexa to go do this and tell us what you
That's
think.
the first time I'd heard of this, but
right?
Very interesting use of Alexa.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It sounds incredible. My first thought was like, oh my God, I want to do this with my RPG. I don't necessarily care about Alexa at all, but it's a fascinating concept. Especially I think for a cyberpunk, game, you could probably do some really cool stuff with that.
Roll a perception check.
Okay, Daryl in chat says it's a choose your own adventure audiobook in Starfinder with Nathan Fillion and Laura Bailey doing voice acting. Nathan Fillion and Laura Bailey as the voice. Oh gosh, yeah. Okay.
All right, Paizo, fine.
That sounds pretty awesome.
You can do it on your phone with the Alexa app. Okay, all right.
Okay.
We're all going to do that this week, and we'll come back to you and tell you how it was. Next headline is Paradox Interactive takes direct control back of World of Darkness. The World of Darkness got upended this week. Paradox Interactive owns the World of Darkness IP, but White Wolf, the company that started it and was sort of operating as a self-operating subsidiary that develops World of Darkness. Now it looks like Paradox is taking back direct control of the game line. They have now formally partnered with Renegade Game Studios as the publishing partner for World of Darkness and their entire catalog. And they're planning new books for Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse, both presumably in the same shared RPG universe this year. The first release is going to be Vampire the Masquerade Companion this December, which is a free supplement with rules for 3 new clans, disciplines related to those clans, and rules for playing humans and ghouls. Now, some of you might remember the controversy surrounding the earlier releases of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. After that controversy, Paradox farmed out the license. There were some books with some pretty aggressively tasteless anti-LGBTQ stuff in those early books, and they ended up being pulled before they actually even hit the shelves. Due to the outroar, Paradox dissolved White Wolf and fired everybody in charge. So now Paradox has final approval of any decisions, and they, prior to this, let Modifus, the makers of the Fallout tabletop RPG, they started taking over the licensing for Vampire. White Wolf went down, everyone got fired or moved to other companies, and World of Darkness basically is no longer self-owned. But all of this took place over the span of a month, right? Just like that. I don't know how many people, if any, were carried off. My understanding was that everybody kind of got axed from before. Or if everybody's new, Daryl might know. Daryl in the chat. But what we do know is, and also we don't know the status of the Vampire the Masquerade material that was worked on by Modifus, or the Werewolf the Apocalypse stuff made by Hunters Entertainment. So all that stuff is sort of new and developing. But the press release from White Wolf was that they are bringing everything back in-house. So the World of Darkness, I think, is poised to explode and do really well again, because people love the IP if they can stop being turds, I guess, right? and hopefully, because everybody was fired, that's the case. So, Oz, do you have any familiarity with White Wolf products?
No, but I do know. Okay, so the lead up wasn't just the anti-LGBTQ stuff. That was actually the straw that broke.
Was the straw. Okay,
that was a straw that broke it. Prior to that, there was a pre-gen character who was basically a Nazi, and then it definitely had a lot of white supremacist undertones and stuff. The anti-LGBTQ stuff was then about like, oh, well, here's actually what the vampire conspiracy is happening with the Chechnya mass genocide of LGBTQ people.
My understanding was they just took a headline from Chechnya about like real world plight of people who were gay in Chechnya, and it was horrible, awful stuff, and they were just like lolling about it, right? Like, you know, as a real world item in one of their source books. And it's pretty tasteless. It's pretty crappy.
Absolutely. And Jason Carl, thank you. I couldn't remember the name, but there was one person that survived from White Wolf, but he was also the one, I believe, he was the one who did the apology on Twitch on behalf of White Wolf. I don't know if I'm correct on this, but there was one person in White Wolf who did a public apology, said, you know, if you are a Nazi, we don't want you. Bye.
I honestly, for me, it's just been really confusing figuring out who's who and who should I avoid. And so while I've played a lot of World of Darkness over the years, a lot of vampire mostly, a little bit of mage, some werewolf, and I've really enjoyed it. I've just completely avoided it since this whole thing started, because I just don't know who to trust or go to.
Yeah.
Same.
And it's been soured emotionally for me. And I'm sad about that, and I'm looking forward to it getting turned around. But I'm not going to be one of the early adopters. I'm going to wait and see how things pan out.
Well, Paradox seems like they've got a pretty decent head on their shoulders. They seem to be taking the right steps.
They have had some issues before that I can't recall what the specifics of that, so I shouldn't really bring them up much. Other than I remember them dealing with them fairly swiftly. I think, but man, it's tough to navigate these days.
That's absolutely true.
It's always tough to navigate. It's probably easier to navigate these days, and now you have
too
access
much
to more information
sometimes. Yeah,
I can confirm Jason Carl was the person I was thinking of. Yes.
Okay,
so I'm cool with him.
So if White Wolf is your jam and the World of Darkness is what you're all about, maybe that's for you. And if you want to delve deep into that and then, you know, give us a report, anything we missed or might have gotten slightly wrong, please hit us up. The next issue of the news is Drift of Dreams, which is a Swordsfall graphic novel. Drift of Dreams is the first ever graphic novel from the Swordsfall universe, featuring art from 10 amazing artists of color. This graphic novel is an emotional journey to the heart of what dreams mean to us. Swordsfall, which is not an RPG, revolves around the Afro-futurist nation of Tikor. While a Swordsfall RPG is in production, Swordsfall itself is a setting and made some waves back in 2019 when the campaign / art book hit Kickstarter and raised over $120,000. Since then, the creator, Brandon Dixon, has released a number of different outlets into the Swordsfall world via various media. Drift of Dreams is the 5th chapter of the Tikor Chronicles, all of which show different sides and stories set in the expanding world of Tikor built by Dixon. The graphic novel, released this week, tells the story of Xavian, the Withering King's corruption of the tapestry. Dimension humans go when they sleep. The Dreamweavers protect this tapestry, who send one of their own to stop the corruption. Drift of Dreams had its own Kickstarter that raised $25,000 last year, and since its release on Amazon, Drift of Dreams has risen as high as 4th on the website's best-selling fantasy graphic novels, competing with Critical Role and Avatar: The Last Airbender, if that gives you any indication. It's also cracked the top 50 on Amazon's list of best-selling graphic novels in general. So you can read more about the world of Swordsfall on their website, and Drift of Dreams is available digitally or through POD on Amazon. We talked about Swordsfall, I think, when the Kickstarter was going on and how excited we were for it. I don't know if you guys are following Brandon or Swordsfall on Twitter, but that is a hoot.
He's a hell of a follow. Yes, it's phenomenal.
Highly recommend it to everybody.
I've been super impressed, not only by the level of craft that he's putting into all this work, but the art that he's got on all these books is so friggin' dope. Like, I just absolutely love everything that has come out. I love the fact that he's tying music in. I love how it's unabashedly Afrofuturist, and like, it doesn't need to be anything other than black people doing cool black people shit, and like, you can just suck whatever because I don't care, right? And like, anytime that like somebody's like, hey, why don't you do, he's like, because it's not for you, go away, right? And like, I just love that somebody out there is just saying, this isn't necessarily for you, or this is for me, and this is what I want. Like, I don't have to justify that to you.
Yeah, but if you'd like to participate, please absolutely do.
Yeah.
Because yes, and I also love that he ethically treats all of his, artists and musicians, everybody, with like, make sure that you get paid properly, make sure that you turn your stuff in, etc. Like, he's really good. He's a great model for what RPGs and just content creators of any setting should be doing.
One of the things that makes people uncomfortable, and I have to check myself sometimes. I feel myself like going like, whoa, really? He hits real hard, but like the things he says, like, for example, you can't say you support black creators if you don't pay black creators, right? So he's like out there saying like, listen, like, you say, if you do this thing, right, if you want to have your own world, why don't you create black media? And he's like, cool, I'll do that. And then like all the white people who said like, yeah, that'd be great, like, just don't buy it, like, just don't show up, right? So he's like one of the only people out there aggressively calling out white people on their like faux allyship, if that makes any sense, right? Like, yeah, we totally, I guess the people that just want to seem like they're allies and like not actually do anything, right? Like, he just has this radar that like just like zaps people, and like it's sort of fun to see from the back, but also calls me to check on, is that me also though, right?
Absolutely,
like, am I also that person who's saying I'm an ally and like not doing my part? So I really appreciate his Twitter, which again is probably the
one of the best
one of the biggest selling points, right?
Please.
But also, like, I'm super excited about this book. I'm super excited that not only an indie artist, but a black indie artist can have a book zoom up to number 4 on Amazon in its category. Like, I'm super happy. I'm super excited that that's it. But he's also had to do it like by word of mouth. Earlier, like he said, like, I sent out all of these press releases to people, and like nobody up until I wrote this news article for us, like up until then, like nobody had really picked up on it. And I was like, why not? Why aren't like at least allies, right? But why aren't like mainstream people picking this up? Because this stuff is dope. So anyway, that's my huge support thrown at Brandon, at Swordsfall, at Welcome to Tigor, at the new Drift of Dreams graphic novel. So yeah, go support Brandon, go read some cool stuff, and go support an emerging world that I believe is going to be a super big hoot when the RPG releases. Next up, we have you guys probably don't care about this, but Cyberpunk Red has released. Have you guys heard anything about Cyberpunk Red? It is the highly anticipated follow-up to R. Talosorian Games' 1990 role-playing game. Alternate timeline, dark future, predecessor to the upcoming Cyberpunk 2077 video game. It's now getting an update. Lots has changed for this classic rule set, so I'm curious about how fans of the older Cyberpunk RPG are going to react. Are they going to be like the Pathfinder crowd who shakes their fist at the updates, or are they going to be like, hey, great, an update, we didn't expect this ever? I could see it going both ways, or maybe just having a lot of both people, or who knows. I don't have any personal experience with the new rule set, so I want to talk to you, Oz, in a second about that. But R. Talosorian Games back in the day was just way ahead of its time as far as the Cyberpunk revolution was concerned. Just a year after the Shadowrun RPG released, Cyberpunk 2020 back then struck me as having some kind of clunky and funky rules, but some of those were addressed in the 2005 version. But curiously, Cyberpunk Red has decided to ignore the 2005 version and instead favor Cyberpunk 2020 as a direct predecessor. Cyberpunk Red takes place in 2045 and acts as a lead-in to the events of CD Projekt Red's upcoming video game and cultural touchpoint, Cyberpunk 2077, in case you've been living under a rock and have not heard of Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk Red is available now for purchase in PDF for $30. You can get that at Drive-Thru RPG, or physically from your local game store on November 19th for $60. So Oz, I know that you have played around with the Cyberpunk Red system, at least an earlier kind of preview release. Cliff, have you played around with that earlier release, or have you seen the new version?
I haven't really. I just looked over the PDF of the Jumpstart kit quite a few months ago. So I've been looking forward to this, and I have to say this release has kind of snuck up on me. I didn't realize it was out already.
Yeah, well, they were going to release it.
They timed it to release with Cyberpunk 2077, and then Cyberpunk 2077 is like, hey, listen, guys, we got to talk. And they pushed their release back to December, but our Talsorian said, hey, nope, we're still going to release at the same time. But so Oz, you are the only one who has direct gameplay experience then with this. So tell us your thoughts about Cyberpunk Red, or at least a Jumpstart version, and like what did you love about it, and then what do you hope maybe gets fleshed out or maybe even changed during the final release?
Yes. So Cyberpunk Red, when we played the Jumpstart kit, and we have the actual play here on the stream, it was a lot of fun. I think that there are a lot of great rules that help make things quick. I think there were a couple of things where some rules just seemed a little all over the place, kind of hard to pin down like why I should remember something. But then when you do, you're like, oh, that's really important. Like I need a reflex of 10 to do I forget what, or I'm curious to see.
I'm actually really I know Rusty Zimmerman did a whole huge stream about Cyberpunk Red, did a lot of character creation stuff, so I'm going to check that out this week. But yeah, I'm super curious as to especially what a lot of our Shadowrun fans think about Cyberpunk Red. I know headed into Cyberpunk 2077, the hype will never be bigger for Cyberpunk than it is right now. So I'm curious as to where this is all going to go, and if that's going to increase the popularity of Cyberpunk Red, or if it's just going to kind of flash the pan, and then like once Cyberpunk 2077 sort of fizzles out, if that's going to fizzle out as well. I'd love for Cyberpunk Red to experience a sort of renaissance, and grow alongside all the other RPGs, because it is one of the classics. It's been around for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. 100% agree.
And our Talsorian seems like good people, and we talk about supporting Black creators. Well, there's Mike Pondsmith right there. Go support him.
And also Sarah Richardson, who did the combat wheelchair for D&D. She was a big contributor here, and
nice.
Yeah, and especially when it came to stuff like using cyberware for disability reasons versus for combat monster reasons. That combat reason stuff, like if you're just trying to augment yourself to be superhuman, that's what costs your humanity. But when it's stuff like for necessity, like disabilities, or because to be more comfortable in your own skin, like if you're doing gender swapping or anything like that, like all of that stuff doesn't cost humanity, which is a very, very big improvement to a lot of the typical tropes of losing your humanity or your essence or your soul every time that you replace a piece of yourself.
Yeah, and as cool as that is, I think that is a really good innovation. I'm like tired of that idea. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of the idea that like having anything like replacing your meat body is somehow makes you less human. I'm just not. I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, and I like how it was addressed in Shadowrun recently, in that all essence really is the essence loss effects is how magic interacts with your body.
Yeah,
and it's not any sort of judgment about your humanity. So I'm curious to see how Cyberpunk Red attaches that, because I like the idea that you're somehow less human, and what does that even mean when you're talking about, having a big old He-Man side character arm?
Right.
That's a buzzsaw or something. Yeah, and maybe it's a little silly, but like, why would that change your consciousness?
Yeah. If you cut off my arm, right? If you cut off my arm and replaced it with, a Tyrannosaurus Rex arm, like I haven't fundamentally changed in my personhood, right? It seems weird. Well, those are just some of the things that are going on in the world of tabletop this week. If you know some other news stories that you'd like to discuss with us or that you'd like us to discuss, head on over to our Discord server at the shadowcasters.network/Discord. We have a channel there just for suggesting news items for this segment every week, or you can email us at contact@shadowcasters.network, or consider becoming a patron of ours over at patreon.com/shadowcasters. Definitely subscribe to this channel, wherever that is, and click the bell icon to make sure that you get notified whenever we have a new video or stream. I have been Opti, and this has been your tabletop news for the week. See you next time.